even with the Gen AI, I've been saying there's a lot this week. It's still rubbish in, rubbish out. Like, you have to put good data in for Gen AI to train from. And also, if you're using like OpenAI, do you know where the source of the data is? How do you know you can trust it? Is it reliable?
Welcome back to the Insights by Design podcast. We are thrilled to have Susan Walsh join us. Susan, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm good, thanks, because it's a Friday afternoon and I can almost smell the weekend.
Friday, you've had a busy week.
Yeah, but also anyone listening on a Monday or a Tuesday, that's not going to make them feel very good.
And Susan, you have the best introduction that I have ever seen for titles. You are the classification guru, fixer of dirty data. You are Data IQ 100 and Data Champion 2 times. You're an APA key influencer. You're the author of Between the Spreadsheets. You're the creator of Coat. You're a TEDx speaker, and you're a keynote speaker. I'm sure there's many more, but that's one reason we were so excited to speak with you is you've done so many things. For those who aren't familiar with you yet, who maybe live under a rock or haven't seen lip syncs, could you give a quick introduction of who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I am an accidental influencer slash thought leader slash bad influencer. I set up my own business, The Classification Guru, 7 years ago. Prior to that, I spent 5 years working for a spend analytics company. Prior to that, I had a women's clothes shop here in Guildford. And before that, I worked in corporate worlds doing sales and lots of boring stuff like that. So I came to data by accident, literally an ad online. Ended up spending 5 years learning on the job. And when I decided it was time to go it alone, I didn't know anybody in the industry, had no connections, no contacts, no potential clients, and realised pretty quickly that things like doing events and also posting on LinkedIn were going to be quite powerful. When it really kind of kicked off for me was when I started doing videos explaining what I do and actually explaining like the basics of what is spend classification, what is a taxonomy. And it kind of just snowballed from there. Suddenly, I was doing lots of podcasts and webinars during lockdown. And then when everything opened up, I started getting invited to events. So I have had the pleasure of speaking all over the world at various different data and procurement events. And yeah, I'm still holding on, running a business as well. So that and has led me to you guys. And also, I think actually a lot of it is I've just said yes to so many things, even if it scared me or I didn't know what to do.
So when most of us learn about classifications and taxonomies, it's in high school science class when we're studying animals. What's a mammal? What's a fish? What's a bird? Things like that. But you have an expertise in data classification and taxonomy. Yes. So what are classification and taxonomy, and why do they matter?
Well, the area that I focus specifically in is procurement spend data. So think of your own bank account, and you get a statement, and you'll get a company name and how much you've spent. Companies have that on a massive scale, and instead of a bank statement, it'll be an invoice, and it'll be the company name. There'll be a description of the goods or services that you've bought, and then there'll be an amount. And what we do is we classify every single individual row. So you might get staples, for example, and you might buy office chairs, you might buy pens, paper, pads, folders. And what we do is we use what's known as a taxonomy or a category tree to classify those things. So it can be like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 levels, depending on the taxonomy. Level 1 might be office supplies. Level 2 might then be office furniture, office equipment, office supplies. Then you would go into maybe stationery, and then you'd go into your pens, paper, or filing cabinets, desks, chairs, etc. So that's what a taxonomy is, and we use that to classify the data. But if you want to think wider than that, think about an online clothing retailer. They're using a form of taxonomy to categorize their clothes. You go into the women's section or the men's section, then it's trousers, top, shorts, shoes, pajamas, nightwear. That's all categories. That's all come from a taxonomy. And then you'd have subcategories of that. So we're all using it in our lives, but we touch it in some way, but we don't always know. And then actually the reason that we would do it for our clients is they want to know how much they're spending on each area and how many suppliers they have. So they might have 100 companies that they're buying office supplies from, but they only need 10, so they need to reduce it. And then they could go to those 10 suppliers and negotiate a better rate because they know how much paper they're buying or ink cartridges or whatever. So that's why we do it for our clients.
I see. So classification and taxonomy are not just about sparking joy through good organization. It's a financial investment in your own company.
Oh, yeah. We have one client. They had some categorized data. When we reclassified it, their legal services spend was 40% higher than they thought it was. And we're talking millions of, this was pounds because it was in the UK, but it could be dollars. But, you know, your spend is almost double what you thought it was. That's terrifying.
And what a huge benefit.
It's like when you get your own bank statement and look and you go, I spent how much on Deliveroo or Uber Eats or was it DoorDash in the US? Like, oh my goodness, I don't need to see that. I don't want to know.
And the COAT methodology is a powerful tool for data classification and cleansing with incredible results, as you just noted. For those who aren't familiar, what does COAT stand for?
Yeah, this is my way of getting everybody involved in maintaining clean data, because a lot of the people who input data into systems are not data people. They are sales and marketing people or finance people or receptionists. And it's really important that everybody enters the data in the same way and talks the same language and follows the same process. So I came up with the data coat. So like a coat, a jacket, I say make sure your data has its coat on. And the first thing is it's got to be consistent. So think about US versus UK terminology. Are we all talking about the same language? Think about date formats. Are we doing day, month, year or month, day, year? Is it all the same? Are you using dashes, slashes or dots to separate the months and days and years out? Or do you have a separator at all? That can, just that alone can cause several different versions of one date. So it's really important. And units of measure are another area where when you have a global data set can cause a lot of problems. Are we talking inches or centimeters? Who knows? Then once it's consistent, it has to be organized. So have it categorized, make sure you've got the city, the region, the state all there, so that if someone says, oh, how much did we sell in the US in Ohio last year? It's all categorized so you can go and find that information quite quickly. And then, of course, it has to be accurate, but define what accurate is within the area that you work in, because it will be different things to different areas. And once you have your consistent, your organized, your accurate data, guess what? It becomes trustworthy. And how many times do you hear, we don't trust the data, we don't use it, we don't trust it, we know it's wrong? So it's a way to get everybody involved in just having data quality and doing things properly front of mind when they're inputting their data.
Yeah, I think the coat metaphor makes a lot of sense because it's easy to remember, it's pithy, and it's easy to relate to our ordinary lives. Our clothes need to be well tailored so that they fit well and so that they can maximize movement and maximize perhaps our professional success. And in a similar way, as you mentioned in one of your videos, our data needs to be well tailored as well.
Yes. Yeah, we say we're the tailors of the data world. You can go to your Walmart and pick a pair of trousers or pants off the shelf and they might fit okay, but you go to a tailor and you get a perfect fit for your body. So we're doing that. But the other thing is it's not, you can't just put your data coat on and leave it. You have to keep it on all year round. You have to keep making sure that it stays on, because there's new data coming in every second and it's dirty, and you need to make sure it's clean so that your coat stays on.
What acronyms did you explore before landing on coat? What were the drafts that you left on the cutting floor?
I actually came up with quote because I was doing a podcast and someone said to me, you really need an acronym. People love acronyms. And I thought about, like, what are the things that data needs to be? And like consistency was always one of the first things. And I think organized was in there. Maybe I can't remember if there's any other names, but we were close to quote. There wasn't really many other options apart from quote when I was actually making it, but I literally did make it up because somebody wanted it for a podcast. That's how it happened. And that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Wow, so it just emerged like Venus from the head of Jupiter.
Yeah, and then, it could have absolutely bombed and never been heard of again, but actually it's got legs, so it works.
And Coat seems associated with your history and experience as a retail executive and then owning your own women's clothing store. Are there any other lessons from your time in retail that have really helped you excel in data?
Oh, I mean, I worked in retail when I was at college and university, so I learned customer service there. I learned a good work ethic. When the shop floor was quiet, we were trained to make ourselves busy. You go and clean the shelves, you go and tidy up the products, you make sure the dates are in the correct order for chips and things like that. So I learned a lot there. I also learned like how you have the power to make someone feel good, like in the shop. That really worked. I would give women a dress to try on that they wouldn't even look at on the rack, and said, look, just try it on, and they'd come out and they would feel amazing. And having the power to do that, and actually it's not such a different feeling with data, to be honest, because people genuinely don't really realize how bad their data is until you've cleaned it and put it next to the old data, and then they go, so it's a similar feeling. Patience is also a really good one. I've been sworn at, I've been shouted at. I lived through retail in a time pre-internet when people at Christmas would have to queue or get in line for 40 minutes to pay for stuff. And they were hot and they were grumpy, and you didn't have what they wanted. And so, patience was definitely another one.
Yeah, Andrew and I both worked in retail ourselves. I worked in a clothing store. Andrew worked in a bookstore. So we understand the power of retail and the lessons that it can teach other sectors of the economy. We wanted to ask, data classification and cleaning can be pretty technical stuff, but the executives hiring you often come from business. How do you communicate technical concepts to a busy, non-technical audience?
For me, that's really easy because I'm a non-technical person. I consider myself non-technical. I can do visual data modeling and things, but I don't really do much coding. And so I'm speaking to them in a language that I know, that is at my level of understanding. So I can make it more relatable and understandable to them by doing that. But I think I really noticed how powerful that was when I started posting like really simple messages online. It really resonated with people. So I always assume that nobody knows anything and based my discussions at that level. And then if they do know something, it's a bonus. But I have done workshops full of heads of data, senior data professionals with Excel, and they've come away and they didn't know how to do something in Excel. So there's a lot of people out there who know less than you think they do. You can always give value to someone by talking at the kind of lowest level.
And I think that's one reason why you're so successful is because you're incredibly approachable, very articulate. You're such a good speaker, and you're a TEDx speaker, an industry thought leader, and a frequent keynoter. And you speak to audiences across the globe. What has been one of your most memorable experiences in your presentations?
Oh, that is so good. I think probably the TEDx, because that was literally my first experience of speaking on stage. Like, if I did it now, I would be so much better. This was just coming out of the last lockdown, so we did we had to interview for it, we had to audition, we had to practice. That was all done online. So we didn't get to stand on the stage until it was our turn to speak. So I had to learn a 10 to 15 minute talk with no slides, no guidance, no prompt. And half of it I don't even remember. I was so nervous. Like, it's just a complete blur to me. And so I remember, I don't think I've ever been that terrified again. All the other talks that I've done have been so much easier compared to that one. And maybe because it was the first one, and whatever the first one was going to be the worst. But even now I think, I'm not even sure if I could talk for 10 minutes without slides. But I mean, I know I could now. But it was, so nervous. I remember that feeling so well.
And as an evangelist for Dremio, I speak to a lot of conferences and webinars, but I don't think I'm great at it. And folks ask me a lot of times, how do I get started in speaking and what advice would you have? But I would put that on you as the real expert. For somebody who's thinking about getting started in speaking as a data professional, what advice would you have for them?
Well, first of all, I've seen people who are classed as great speakers who have put me to sleep. And technically, they do all the right things, but they're not engaging. They're not keeping my attention, and I'm bored. So for me, a great speaker is not necessarily someone who's completely polished, but someone who will engage with the audience, make them laugh, tell them something memorable, tell a story. And there is no other way to get started but then just do it. Some people like to go to, speaker clubs, and there's a few of those around. But honestly, there is no better practice than just getting up there and doing it. And I started with webinars, so I think that really did help me. So maybe that's a way to go first. But knowing your slides inside out is really helpful, because I have a couple of presentations now that if the slides failed, I could still pretty much talk through the topic without the slides. If you're really heavily relying on your slides, then that could catch you out at some point, because, technical issues happen. And it's just practice makes perfect. And I am nowhere near perfect, and I still get nervous and struggle. But even things like, people will be on their phone and talk in the audience, and you have to keep going. And the last talk that I just did last month, I'd been talking about dirty data, and then someone's phone was going, rawr, 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 and it went on for ages. So I just made a joke about, it's a warning about dirty data. Just kind of, you have to just take those things in your stride and not let it faze you. But engage the audience too. Like, that's really important to me. Like, eye contact, I love seeing a nodding head, when you said something, and make them connect with them. Don't just talk like you're giving a presentation at school, or, actually get them engaged. And have fun. If you're not having fun, then you're not going to enjoy it, and that's going to come across.
There's a now notorious concept called death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Slides are wonderful. We need visual information. But as you mentioned, PowerPoint can be, or slides of any kind can become a crutch. And sometimes presentations become just kind of a boring lecture where the person turns around and they're reading and people go into TV mode. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
practice and I think a lot of courage sometimes to actually engage the audience like you're
Yeah.
talking about, Susan. Do you have any tips for people who feel really nervous speaking? How can we overcome our nerves as a speaker, or how specifically do you handle your nerves if you're feeling kind of tense before an engagement?
I think the most time I'm nervous is when I don't know the presentation so well. So knowing your content is really well. And actually, I break all the rules with the PowerPoint rule because normally I have 50 to 60 slides in a presentation. However, there's not one single bullet point or one single white slide in there. Not even a sentence. Everything is pictures, one or two words, images, videos. I like to break up my sessions with videos, which kind of gets people out of that kind of just sitting there because suddenly, oh, we've changed media from pictures to video. And it's about definitely getting them to remember, like I will not have a sentence on the screen because if there's a sentence on the screen, they're reading that and they're not listening to me. No matter how much you tell them not to read it, they will read it. So by having pictures, you require less brain power to look at a picture. And so, yeah, that would be my advice as well, yeah.
Speaking of presentations, we wanted to ask you about your famous lip sync Sundays. You have captured the attention of thousands by showing your personality on LinkedIn with your lip sync Sunday renditions, which have covered Michael Jackson to Taylor Swift and so many artists in between. Who is your dream celebrity to see and react to one of your lip sync videos?
Well, it would have to be my love of my life, Robbie Williams. He's a singer here in the UK. I'm 44 and I have been following him since I was 14. I've been to at least 20 concerts of his all over the place. I would love it if he saw one of my lip syncs doing that. But yeah, I can't believe how much joy it brings to people. And that's what kind of keeps me doing them because they're hard work and I am a bit of a perfectionist. So lip syncs from when I started to lip syncs now are like a whole different ballgame. And it's like now I've got different edits and cuts and, transitions and, I used to just do one take with a phone and the music playing in the background. Now I put the music onto the video and, it's got out of control really, but I get requests. I go to events and the first thing I meet people for the first time and they're like, following on LinkedIn, I love your lip syncs. That's the first thing I hear. So, it's been a really powerful tool to get awareness and recognition.
Now, LinkedIn's known as the suit and tie of the social media world, and your lip syncs stand out quite a bit in a good way. What gave you the courage and thought process behind starting to do the lip syncs on LinkedIn?
It was a lip sync challenge that someone did. And I did like a small part in a bigger lip sync challenge. And somebody said, "Oh, you're really good at it." It's like, okay, I'll have a go at another one. And it was, during lockdown and everyone was at home and feeling a bit depressed. And I was like, oh, cheer them up doing something silly. And it really took off from there. And absolutely, I was just like, I look ridiculous. I can't believe I'm doing this. Who's going to watch it? And people did, and people still do. And yeah, it's now I take it to events and film other people at events getting involved in the lip syncs. So they get to be part of it now too, which they love.
So you've recently been on a world tour, Susan, and had the chance to experience many local cuisines. Has there been any new dish that has blown you away? If so, what was it?
Oh, now that's a really good question. Did I have? Ah, I was in Sweden actually. There was some pretty funky food out there. I don't know what it was called. It looked like a giant kind of meatball thing, but it tasted a bit cheesy as well, but it was really nice. I don't know, it was like something traditional, but it was really yummy. But the Swedish do love their meatballs.
Yeah, we have to go to the IKEA stores to get those.
Oh,
I've never had them in person.
oh, oh, I really want meatballs now.
And with the rise of social media, a lot of folks are really trying to build their brand. A mutual friend, Kate Strachny, teaches a course on how to build your brand.
Yeah.
What have you found most effective in establishing yourself as a thought leader in the data space?
The number one most important thing is to be authentic, I think. Do it for the right reasons. I do it because I enjoy it and I'm trying to grow my business, and I do genuinely love what I'm doing. If you are finding it a chore, that comes through in your posts and your content, and so do it when you want, how you want, but find the right balance for you, and don't compare yourself to other people. We're all at different journeys, and you know, in the data space, like I'm trying really hard to hit my 40k followers and have been for a long time. Kate and all the others, they're at 100 plus, you know, and I can't compare myself to them because my objectives are completely different to theirs, you know, and even from that, I have a great network and I'm getting business and clients. 90% of my business comes through LinkedIn. So what I'm doing is working for me. It might not work for the next person. In fact, I don't think anyone else could get away with lip syncs on LinkedIn, to be honest. You know, you have to find what's right for you and do that. And yeah, don't pretend to be something else, because you will get caught out. And it's hard to be someone else. It's so much easier to be yourself. You guys must see that sometimes as well. Like, people maybe, I don't know, come on and they're a different person, like off recording than on recording.
We're pretty good at breaking people down.
Yeah. You'll wear them down.
And we're seeing that a lot online with the rise of AI content, where it's become much more generic and less personalized. So it really helps your content stand out as somebody who's not afraid to be themselves, and probably landing clients that are a really good fit for you, your
Yes.
personality, and your services.
It's kind of like a matchmaking service, and it filters out people who don't like my content. Are not going to want to work with me, and I'm not going to want to work with them. So it filters them out. And so it's been really, really, really good for that, actually.
Let's talk a little bit more about AI, which is such a hot topic nowadays. It's transforming nearly every industry. How do you think AI will impact data classification?
Well, it is transforming every industry, but not always for the good. Classification, particularly in the kind of things that I do, is very subjective, and context is often needed as well. And where the new Gen AI tools are very good at delivering back facts, asking them to make a decision on something, they are terrible. And so we're quite a way away from a place where it's going to be good in the classification space, except for things like hardware, so nuts, bolts, and screws, where they might have a part number, or it's really easy to know what the description is and what it is. Maybe animals is another good one. But even with the Gen AI, I've been saying there's a lot this week. It's still rubbish in, rubbish out. Like, you have to put good data in for Gen AI to train from. And also, if you're using like OpenAI, do you know where the source of the data is? How do you know you can trust it? Is it reliable? All those things. The output side, if you don't know what your data is supposed to look like, clean and good and accurate, using AI is not going to help you because you're not going to know if it's right or wrong or useful or not if you don't know what it's supposed to look like when it's clean. So we still need people to be involved, to know the data, to be close to it, and then you can really leverage it. I've been saying a lot this week as well. It should be to augment what we do, not replace in most cases. Yeah, do all the rubbish jobs that we don't want to do, absolutely, but use it as a helper, not a replacement. I think there's a lot of misconception out there, especially in my space, that this is going to do everything for us, and that's not the case at all.
And you are another member that we've interviewed of the Data Avengers, the infamous team of data superheroes. We've interviewed Andrew Jones, George Firikin. If you could pick one of the Avengers to help you classify data, who would you pick?
It's got to be is Iron Man in the Avengers? Yeah, it's got to be Iron Man. He's got all the cool toys. He's funny, got sense of humor. He's not like the normal type of superhero, kind of a bit like me, I guess, not your normal data person. Yeah.
He'd be a good colleague. He'd fit in with the brand.
The Iron Lady.
He would.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to ask you something. So I was at the podcast show in London last week, and I was on a panel about AI and podcasting. And one of the examples that I shared with them was I was at an event a couple of months ago where there's a guy who's using AI to create his podcasts daily, including replicating his voice. So he literally does 15 minutes of picking some news headlines and Gen AI does the rest. So how are you guys feeling about that?
We actually have a close friend who has a giant podcast who literally does that. That's what he does, and it's very successful. But he goes for volume, and it's worked well for him. For us, we try to go deep, and even when we try to use AI to write questions, it doesn't really work. It's not natural. We use it more on the post-production.
Personality, that can't come across yet. Well, not yet anyway.
No. It doesn't work for us, but it does help with the post-production, with cleaning up voices and whatnot.
I'm sorry, I hope you can't hear the sirens that are going off right now.
The data police are coming.
They find me.
They found some dirty data. And there's a lot going on in 2024. Are there any trends that you're really excited for or watching to see where they end up?
I literally posted last night about, is everybody fed up with the whole hype around Gen AI? And it just kind of blew up because everyone's like, yes. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out over the next 12 months, how it's going to evolve and develop, how it's going to be used, and how people view it and understand its capabilities. I'm quite interested to see how that's going to play out.
Yes, it's been incredibly ubiquitous, and I think a lot of boards have said, hey, do generative AI or do AI because we don't want to fall behind. And then it's good for you because I think a lot of companies are like, oh no, our data is so dirty, we can't do anything until we fix this problem.
Or they think the AI will literally fix the data, and it's like, sorry, it's not going to do that.
Right.
Not unless you've trained it properly.
Exactly. Yes, there's a lot of promises being made from startups about how AI is literally going to classify data. I've spoken with a startup who said that, and then we started talking about the preparation and what would be required for their AI to work on a company I was consulting with. And it was just, I would have to hire another consultant to get the data in a state where this AI tool could then actually work on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen.
We've been turned down for projects because we don't have enough tech. We're too people based, which is funny because the reality is with all the tech companies, there are people in the background checking, verifying, fixing what's not right with the data. And I said this just this week as well. I mean, this is the hot topic. If AI was fully working and as amazing as people think it is, why are you not getting your projects back within a day or two? Because AI should be able to do it like that. Why is it taking still weeks or months for a project to be carried out? It's because it's not all AI. That's why. There's people still involved. But nobody wants to admit that. But I'm happy to say that.
Yeah, some of our podcast guests have mentioned that AI is actually making their job harder because they have to do their job and then find a way to integrate the AI tool on top of that, almost going out of their way in some cases to get the AI stuff in to make it trendier and then go back and do the job that they needed to do.
The real stuff. Yeah. And again, it should be augmentation, it shouldn't be adding to your work. It should be supplementing it or easing it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, it's been such a pleasure. We don't want to stand in between you and your weekend. Thank you so much. Where is the best place for people to find you to learn more?
Definitely LinkedIn. That is where I hang out most of the time. I'm pretty much logged in all day, every day, apart from weekends. Even then, I'm still dipping in and out. So yeah, Susan Walsh, the classification guru, you'll definitely find me there. And yeah, I engage a lot with my audience as well. So, if you ask me something, I will respond.
Wonderful. Well, we'll link your book, your LinkedIn, your website, and your newsletter below. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alex, thank you.